it makes sense on paper, but at the same time, it's like, what's guaranteeing that those people are going to work hard? What's guaranteeing that those people have the IQ to actually add any value?
That's a good point.
In a perfect world, you know what I'm saying?
But there are problems currently, right?
Agreed.
So do you think change is necessary?
Change is always necessary.
Okay.
But I don't think the right change is capitalism to something else. Unless that something else is something that we haven't heard of and is new. Because we've tried everything else. Like, this is the best we got.
Is it, though?
That's what I'm saying. What's better?
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 34th episode of the Conscious Cast. I'm your host, Cal, along with my other boy, and
Jay.
Yes, sir.
And he said Cole. Because you couldn't hear anything.
We're experiencing some technical difficulties on this episode of the Conscious Cast. Please bear with us, ladies and gentlemen.
This fly noise in the background, we are aware that it's there. We just don't know what to do about it. We apologize.
Yeah, we will fix it maybe in the near future, but probably not. But, you know.
We'll see. We'll see.
We ball regardless.
Cole and I will be looking like a handful of numbnuts trying to pass this mic around so that the fly noise is not absolutely devastating to the audio quality. But.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. So today we are going to be talking about capitalism, right? And we're going to be talking about your own personal experience in areas such as consumption, your own experience with jobs, pay, and the like, right? And so, as you guys have with you, you have a capitalism diagram. I'll throw it up on the screen right now. So, as you can see, we live in a democracy, right? And within that democracy, that is our political system, right? And so, we also have an economic system that is based in capitalism. And so, essentially, you have democracy at the top, and then you have capital, and then you have government, labor. And so essentially that flows through businesses, right? That's like our economic system and production of value. So essentially for something to produce value, it has to generate money, generate a profit, right? And so that profit, as you can see, that's the capital that goes in and then goes through the business out to the profit. And then with the government, that's how they interact with businesses and they get taxes out of that. And so labor is essentially the workers, they trade their labor in order for a paycheck, right? And so they get wages, and so there are either high wages or there are either low wages, right? And so we'll be touching on all these topics. The government gets taxes based on companies' profits, based on our own wages as well. And so that's just kind of a little background on that diagram. And so for a little definition for capitalism, capitalism is an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. So contrasting this with like a communist, or I guess you could say, communism type of government where all of the money, all the profits are state owned, right? So private companies can own profit, right? Their own profit. It doesn't go right into the government where it's kind of like a communist system where they redistribute it based on, I guess they determine what their citizens' basic needs are. And so on that basis of us being able to explore private profit, we're able to set up enterprises and organizations, businesses and firms that through capitalism that serves a demand, and then through that demand, it meets consumers' needs, and like with those needs, with those needs being satisfied, and we'll discuss whether those needs are actually needs, and if it's whether people actually need those things in terms of products and commodities, but they're able to use those products and commodities after generating them for profit. So do you guys have a understanding of capitalism and how it interacts with democracy? Okay, cool. And so far we have discussed what capitalism is, this type of political economy's inputs and outputs, as well as its causes and effects on the individual, organizational, and a governmental level. With all that in mind, what are your initial thoughts on capitalism, and did anything about the diagram surprise you? I can say it again if you'd like me to.
Would you like to go?
You want to go first?
I'll go. So, I mean, the first thing that came into my mind when I saw this, well, because when I first looked at it before we started talking about it, the first thing I thought about was like,
That's over in the middle, so I can see it too.
Oh yeah, the first thing that I thought about was like, because when I started learning about business, because I'm eventually going to create my own business, was that the overarching rule behind capitalism is that in order for you to have a business that actually generates income, is you need to create value for the consumer.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was like the number one thing that I saw, and when I saw that business, and then in parentheses production of value, that was like immediately it was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But what I didn't understand, or at least didn't like realize until you pointed out, was that those three, like the capital and the profit, go together. The government and the taxes go together, and the labor and the wages go together.
Yep.
But the question I had was, do all three of those solely go with their respective partner, or do they all tie in together?
No, they all tie in together. And so this is kind of just like a little broad overview of how capitalism works. And so you can kind of they all interact with one another. So for instance, like let's just say a business makes a profit, right? They have to pay taxes on that profit, right? So yes, like a business has capital, right? That excess profit, that excess, I guess you could say, accumulated wealth that they use to make products and commodities to make profit. But that profit is used for taxes, and then through that taxes, and you could also see that with labor, right? They make wages, but those are also taxed, right? So there is an interacting, I guess you could say there are folds and they do interact with one another.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So then why are there? I don't know, because to me with wages and there's high and low.
Yeah.
I thought that had to do with value.
No, yeah. So production of value essentially means when your labor is, so like let's just say I'm going into a business, right? And I'm selling my labor. I'm selling my labor in order to get a paycheck, right? That labor is, I guess you could say, the production of value in that instance, right? It's not always based on a commodity. It's not always based, like, yes, you are contributing. You are the means to produce that product and that commodity, right? But you do that for a wage. That's the output, right? And so kind of like high and low wages, we've talked about this on the podcast before, right? What determines whether someone has a high wage, or what determines whether someone has a low wage? And so you guys might both have experiences with this in your own life, right? Because certain people, depending on where you're born, right? Depending on like your socioeconomic status, right? Your level of education and gender, right? There are certain external factors that limit your ability to earn money, right? And so like through being able to own your own labor and sell your own labor for a paycheck, what occupations have you guys held in your life or jobs?
I'll run this one first. So
It's okay. Got it. You're good. You're good.
technical difficulties over here, but essentially, I've had really 3 jobs in my life. First job, I was a dishwasher at Panera.
Yes, sir.
Arguably, I would not recommend going to the food industry unless you're like a waiter, because you get good tips.
Yes.
But the point of certain positions, you kind of get screwed over. But
And in what way do you get screwed over?
my job was, I made minimum wage. I did the dishes. So at a Panera. So every time, this is a pet peeve of mine. Every time I would leave the shift, my hair would be disgusting and matted down by the hat I had to wear all shift. And I would come home smelling like a wet salad. Disgusting smell. I would only equate it to the outfield on a hot day. Anyone who's played baseball knows what I'm talking about. But the point I'm making out is, certain jobs offer you more comfortability. And I guess, like, that didn't really do much in terms of preparing me for a career. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
It's short-term money that you work a crappy job, you get paid, you move on.
Yeah.
But the job after that was an internship opportunity at a very prestigious government contractor that I've been going to every summer and winter break between, during college. And the whole deal with that is that's much more efficient because number one, I'm getting paid more, but that's not why I'm going. It's the experience. I've learned more there about my career field than I have most of the time in the classroom.
Right.
And, you know, it's just how, like, from the business standpoint, it's like you're fostering potential employees to better, you know, you teach them how to do the job, then they come work for you and do the job and help improve the business as a new talent. So, and my current job, which is just working at the Rec Central here at CCSU. But the point I'm going back to with the internship is, you know, it's very much I'm profiting from it, and so is the business. And like it said in the democracy diagram about the business is the production of value. And going back to the wage thing, it was there are limiting factors that can determine whether your wage will be high or low, but a lot of it amounts to experience. And why it is sometimes hard to climb the corporate ladder, and it is like relatively cutthroat depending on where you are.
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
But number one is like, it is about the time you put in, but additionally, it's about how much experience you have. Like realistically, employers, as far as I'm concerned, or at least in my experience, focus not on the number of your grade, like your GPA. They're like, I actually commented this on the school episode you guys did, but there was like, you know, it's about experience. It's not about a number attached to how many tests you passed, you know, and that experience, I feel like in this society is very highly regarded, you know, like the episode we had recently about mastery. It's about what it takes to get to that next level. And like you see everybody at the top, and as a society, we revere them. Athletes is the easiest example because it's, you know, you're watching them compete in these sports all the time, and you can view them at the highest level. But this, not a lot is said about the average working man, 9 to 5. But the point I'm making is, it's that experience that will add value to the company. So if you're selling your labor, and your labor is valued higher than others because of your experience, then you are more valuable to the company.
Yeah, so essentially, like, what you're saying is school is not always a necessity for you to be successful in life, right? And so through you being able to, I mean, obviously, like, there's certain occupations that you need to, like, for like a lawyer, a doctor, right? And there's always a necessity to go to school, but like you said, there's entrepreneurship opportunities. There's ways through hard work, through your own ability to search things out. If you have the ability and the resources to climb the ladder. But what if you don't have access to those resources and those opportunities? Like, in your experience, have you ever... Maybe not, but like, have you ever witnessed anybody that has had like limiting factors in their life that haven't allowed them to, I guess, gain the necessary experience to climb the ladder, and you do see that as a limiting factor in their life? Have you ever witnessed that or observed that in your own life or with others around you? This is also to you, Jay. Have you ever like witnessed, or do you know anybody or seen, like, not in your own personal experience, maybe like on YouTube or, you know, on social media, or someone you know?
I mean, when you look at because the studies have been done,
yeah,
right? Especially the psychological studies on why people make more than others. And originally the studies were on why men make more than women, and they were trying to account for why women make 70 cents on the dollar for men. And although this gets into controversy and whatnot, like, the research is out there. Like, whether or not you agree with it or disagree with it or have your own opinions is like, you do your own research. But the number one factor for why somebody would make more money than somebody else is IQ. And number two is your level of conscientiousness, which is your willingness to work hard, right? And that's what you want. I mean, that's what you should. I hope that's what you want, right? You don't want it to just be a random array. Like if you want somebody to be an electrician in your house, are you gonna want the most average or the worst electrician? Are you gonna select a random electrician just anybody on this, like, hey, just give me anybody? No, you're going to want the smartest and hardest working electricians. And those are going to be the same people that make the most money because they provide the most value, but that's because they're smarter and more hardworking. There's a ton of other traits, right? Gender is one of them, right? Ethnicity is one of them, but it accounts for a lot smaller of a reason, right? For just money, right?
Yeah.
there are people that will take opportunities away because of race, because of gender, and like the fact that there's not always equal opportunity is not okay. And that's what I believe everybody should be fighting for. But in terms of why somebody doesn't have the same opportunities, right? So like if you're like, to just make the example easier and to completely take politics out of it, if you and I, who are both white dudes in America, want to get a certain job, like doing whatever, if you have a higher IQ than me and you're willing to work harder than me, why would I deserve the job? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you're smarter and you're harder working, like, you're at an advantage, an unfair advantage. Yeah, you were just born that way, though. It's like, and that's, and so to me, it's IQ. Like, that's the number one thing I was thinking, because like, you can't really do much about that. You can work hard, go to school and whatnot, but like, in terms of how naturally smart you are, you can't really do a whole lot about that. And like, I don't know, just to me, if you're not very intelligent, it's unfortunate, but like, it's the number one predictor of how much monetary value you're going to be given in this life. So
that's interesting you say that, because it is a big determining factor, your level of intelligence, your natural ability to do things. And, you know, there are limiting factors, but you do have the capability, at least within this society, to some extent, to climb the social ladder. And it's interesting because whether we live in a meritocratic system or a meritocracy, you know, where hard work equals your position on the social ladder, is a very interesting question. And I think you guys both, correct me if I'm wrong, both lie on the side of your social position lies on hard work. Would you?
Yes and no.
No, yes and no?
It's a factor.
It's a factor.
It's a factor, right? But like, I don't care how hard you work. Like, I don't care how hard I work. Even if I have the same amount of conscientiousness as Elon Musk, I'm not going to be able to create a company called SpaceX or Tesla. I just can't, because my brain doesn't work that way. I'm not smart enough. I'm just not naturally smart enough, right? It has nothing to do with anything else besides my IQ and whatever else I'm missing that Elon Musk has. Is it because he's a man and has white skin? Maybe. But, like, the man's a genius. A literal genius. A literal genius that's willing to work 100-hour weeks, but not just put in any sort of work, working incredibly hard and incredibly smart. So it's like, I don't know. When you're
designing actual spaceships.
Yeah, like, literally he's going to put a car on the moon and you're questioning. I mean,
bought Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, so yes, to a certain extent, I believe hard work is what brings people money. But I just think it's one of the factors. I think it's very, very important. And I think on the studies that have been done, it's number 2. Like how willing you are to work hard is what's the most correlated with how much money you make. But that's behind IQ, how smart you are.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Additionally, on that same tangent, I wanted to say, like, it is also, you know, going back to what you're saying about, like, limiting factors, like, IQ is definitely one of them. But it's also a matter of, like, how you carry yourself socially. Like, not, like, career socially. I'm talking about person-to-person, casually socially. Because you may not be the smartest. Like, I feel like Jordan Belfort's one of the perfect examples. He is very charismatic. But he's not the smartest guy in the world. You know, he's smart enough that he's a hustler and that he works hard, but he's charismatic. If you're good at talking, you will succeed in an interview with someone who's shyer and a genius. You know, if you're good and can't really apply it because you're nervous or you're scared, like I've choked on job interviews for stuff I knew. Like, the biggest example for me is I applied for an IT position here, and I was telling them, they asked me one of the most basic IT questions on the planet. What command do you use to look up an IP address? I can say it's IP config all day, but in that interview I was nervous and I choked. Didn't get hired. So if you're charismatic enough to speak about what, like, the job more effectively, or just empathize with your employer or the interviewer, and you just kind of establish that connection. That can make up for a lot of where you're missing technically. Like, but like the one I'm mostly predominantly speaking of is like, say there's an area you're weaker in. It's like, they ask you like, what's your biggest weakness, or like, what would you like to improve? And it's like, you come in with like, well, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. We're saying, I don't know what we're doing at all, but you want to convey yourself like, here are my strengths. Here's where I'm not as comfortable, and I'd like to improve that at this company. You can, like, the body language and speaking confidently about yourself and selling yourself to your employer can oftentimes make up for the weaknesses you have academically or technically or, experience-wise, and help you score that win.
I don't know. For me personally, I think on a similar tangent to what you're talking about is like, you got to find what you're good at, like what you're naturally good at. Because like I give the example all the time. Like the reason why I can't get paid to be an NBA basketball player is because I would suck as an NBA basketball player, right? Yeah. Just in the same sense where maybe LeBron James wouldn't be a good life coach or a good content creator, which is what I get paid for, right? Yeah. But that's like, when you find the lane that you're actually gifted at, you'll get paid a lot more because you're bringing more value. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like,
I think you bring up a really good point there too. Like, just, yes, we do to some extent live in a meritocracy, right? And I believe, in my own opinion, that is for the few, right? And I do believe there is a great deal of society that is limited, right? And people do start in different positions. But a lot of what Cole was saying, like your body language, what you have in your control when you're doing an interview, when you're going for a job, when you're working harder, right? Is very, like, I think you guys did a great job explaining that, and I agree with you. And then you also brought up people aligning their job with their purpose, right? And so right now, or maybe a couple months ago, I'm not too sure. I haven't looked it up in a little bit, but we were living in the Great Resignation, right? And so essentially, I brought this up to you a little while ago on, I don't know, maybe like 10 episodes ago or something like that. I know it's already been 10 episodes. I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah. Can you? What is it?
So essentially, people, like, more people than ever are leaving their jobs because they don't find intrinsic satisfaction or purpose with their jobs, and the unemployment rate, I guess you could even look at nurses. You could even look at people that are doing things for the right reason, and that are even intrinsically satisfying, but they're being overworked. They're being the demand isn't meeting their pay, right? It's just not equal in their opinion. And like I said before, we're living in the Great Resignation, where people are going to these 9-to-5 jobs and they hate it. They don't enjoy it, and it makes them not enjoy their life, or when they get home, they simply they just, maybe, I don't know, they don't have any time to do the other things they love, right? And so, what do you guys think about, like, I mean, I know you already touched on this a little bit, but what do you guys think about having, because I know exploring different areas, different alternative areas of jobs, say, content creation for you, even me, like exploring that as a career, something that's different from the paradigm that we're currently living in, where the norm, and it's starting to shift, where the norm is to enter the workforce, right? To get a 9-to-5 job. What do you guys think about a person exploring new alternatives, or just in general exploring a job that's intrinsically satisfying? How important do you guys think that is?
I think that microphone. But anyway, I think a big thing about it is, like, a lot of people are attached to that dollar.
Yeah.
Because either they want to have a lot of money, or they have a certain lifestyle they need to maintain, or they have family. But I think a big thing that people really need to focus on is, like, you can still work that 9-to-5. But from that 5 to midnight, or whenever you go to sleep, you got to be figuring out what you like to do.
So when you
be about that hustle, you know, it's like, sure, it's good if you can start there, but if you're later in life, you should ease yourself into that, where it's like you have your safety net of your job, but slowly you take hours and hours off, and you put less time into this thing you hate that you do for the money, and put it more into the thing you like that will that will give you more return, I suppose.
Did you do that when you worked at sorry, correct me, like with an internship, right? Job, didn't you work there from like 5 in the morning until like what, like 3, and then
Yeah.
you came home and you were able to do that, right?
Yeah.
So did you find, in your own experience, did you find that was that worked for you?
Yeah. So like I said, because of the location and where I'm driving to, it's an hour away.
Yeah. True.
So wake up early in the morning, leave by 5, get there by 6, leave by like 3 or 4ish, and then I drive back, get home at 5, and then I'd work on whatever I was interested in. You know, but like I'm not only am I learning on the job,
Yeah.
I'm doing my own learning in the background, which for cybersecurity is a big thing.
Yeah.
And the big part of that is, you know, if you have something that you enjoy, like content creation, I feel like is the best example. You're working your 9 to 5 job, go home, record a couple YouTube videos, edit, you know, put stuff out there, put stuff on TikTok, you know, it's like, it's easier to do it that way. But the whole deal is you go from your 9 to 5 and then you work your 5 to midnight. But soon that 5 to midnight, you can put more time into it. And then it becomes your 9 to 5, but not like you're not shooting yourself in the foot just to get, you know, the next paycheck. It's about doing what you love because you love it, and the money isn't an issue.
Yeah.
At least for me, it breaks down to a bunch of different factors. Like, it's not like I always say, it's not a black and white answer to how to find your purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
But the few things that are guaranteed is you're not going to be right on what you think your purpose is the first time you go for something.
Yeah.
Right? But the way it actually goes is you go towards something, and then you figure out what you like about it and what you don't like about it, and then pursue something that you now know because you've tried something else. But it's all trial and error. Like, you're a human being, and like going into something thinking that you're going to know exactly what your purpose and your passion is and what your perfect career path is absolutely ludicrous, and it doesn't exist. And the people that act like it exists are people who are faking it just as hard as you are. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But I think a big part of it too that people don't understand is, like, you gotta be in good physical health, because when you work a 9 to 5 and then, like Cole said, you have to keep that 9 to 5. It's not a good idea to just quit your job so you can pursue your purpose when you don't even know what your purpose is. Like, if you don't have the energy at the end of the day to be doing things to try and pursue certain areas of life, to figure out what it is you actually enjoy and hopefully find a place where that intersects with where you can add value to other people's lives, to then find a career path that is enjoyable. Like, if you don't have the energy to do that, you're screwed, right? So it's like a big part of it is, what are your habits like? Like, are you just eating soda and sitting down, live a sedentary lifestyle? Thank you, Cole.
Yeah.
Like, so I think a big part of it is, like, you got to have it sounds corny and cliche, but it's like, if you don't take care of yourself physically, you're not going to have any of the energy that you need to go after the things that you want to go after. And I don't know. So to me, it's like, those are the two things to keep in mind. It's like, you got to have the physical energy to pursue those things, but you also have to have the mindset of, you're not going to be right on your first time or your second time or your third time or your fourth. Like, it's going to take a lot of trial and error of figuring out what you actually like, because it's more of a process of figuring out what you don't like, and then being like, oh, but that kind of interests me.
Did you do that in your own, like, experience? Because obviously, like, I don't know if you consider, your TikTok, content creation, life coaching. I don't know if you consider that a career, or just like a lifestyle.
Yeah.
But did you find that in your own experience? Like, you had to explore what you didn't like to find what you liked?
Because I started off, I went to school originally to become a dental hygienist.
Oh, wow, I did not know that.
Yeah,
why did you want to become a dental hygienist?
Because it was the safe and secure job, and my mom's a dentist. And
oh, shoot, really?
Yeah,
no,
so it's like that was just like what was.
You would have made a good dental hygienist.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I didn't want to be a dental hygienist. I'll give you that.
Sorry for the interruption. Cole had to go for an emergency reason. Hopefully this works out. But no, I think touching on what we were going on before, within a capitalistic system. Okay, so prior to capitalism, we had a feudal system, right? Where very interestingly, you did not have social mobility, right? You were born into the class. You were born into a class, into a set. I guess you could say like into an area within an economic system and society where you worked for the rest of your life, right? You had a lord, they looked over you, did some things for you, they provided land, and you would work on the land and provide them resources, right? And so there was no possible way they could, at least the people in the lower class, I don't know if they were called like commoners or plebs or plebeians or whatever they were formerly called, or no, I believe they were called serfs. And so essentially, they didn't own their own labor, right? And as it transitioned from a feudal system into a capitalistic system, this guy named de Tocqueville, a European, came to the U.S. early in, I guess you could say, the 1800s, and he essentially observed early capitalism in its early stages. And so he observed that within capitalism, individuals have the ability to choose the occupations they want to do, right? And we touched on this before. Well, this is within the domain of people that have the ability to explore a meritocracy. And in this instance, it was white men, right? Unfortunately, they were, and he considered all men equal, but as you could tell, all men were just white men. So clearly we do not believe in that anymore. Thank God. But yeah, so. Within your own life, I had this question down, through being able to own your own labor and sell your own labor, right? Because you own that labor. That labor is your property. So you've held occupations in your life, right? Yep. And with these occupations, you've been able to gain more skills, more ability, more knowledge, more experience, right? And so with owning your own labor, and you began to earn money in terms of your own freedom as an individual, how have you been able to explore new occupations and also, I guess you could say, gain new things in your life, whether that be materially, whether that be intellectually, whether that be anything?
So, I mean, the first thing it immediately makes me think about is, because I didn't even talk about this earlier when you asked the question. But so I've had a couple jobs. I started off working as basically a secretary at my mom's office when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
And then when I was 17, I got a job at a country club at a golf course, working outside, cleaning golf clubs, doing all the outside staff work for a couple years. And then I got a job at Carbone's, like bussing tables, working inside the kitchen, a bunch of different little stuff like that. And so those are the jobs I've had where I'm working for somebody else, and I still currently work at Carbone's once or twice a week.
Yep.
But
oh, nice.
But what my main source of income is from content creation on TikTok, which is basically, as you know, all about mental health, mindset, self-improvement, all that sort of deal. So essentially, like the really cool thing about capitalism is that, like, I've had the opportunity to pursue that, and it's just like weird to think about, because like I was even thinking about this the other day, like if you go back even 50, 60, 70 years, like the idea that you could have a phone, record yourself talking, and then get paid for it because people are watching it is wild. Even 20 years ago, to think, right? Because like, this is not to blow smoke up my butt, but but the amount, because a bunch of my videos will get hundreds of thousands and millions of views. Some of them get like up to like 6 million views. Yeah. To get that kind of reach, even 20 years ago, on TV, cost millions of dollars to air something. Yeah. And you couldn't make videos, long-form discussions like we're doing now. Yeah. Like, and just release a podcast for free on YouTube and then clip it up and just put it on TikTok and all these platforms for free. Yeah. Like, you needed to compress down everything you wanted to say into a little 30-second bit so that you can put it on Fox News or whatever, and then it would air. And everything you wanted to get out couldn't even get out because you can't communicate for more than 30 seconds anyways. And the opportunity that capitalism has provided to incredibly smart people to even make these platforms like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and whatnot, so that people can have these long form discussions and can express themselves for free, put out the content and let the market, aka the people, decide what they want to see, what they like to see, and then reward those content creators for getting views and for bringing people to their platform. It's like everybody wins. Wins monetary in money terms. Everybody wins. But then again, you have YouTube and Instagram and TikTok where, like, an overwhelming majority of it is negative entertainment.
Yeah.
Which is just girls showing their bodies off and
Yeah.
the Kardashians and things that are terrible for people's mental health, which is what brings the most views. So like it has its negative aspect of it, but in terms of money and economics, like everybody wins.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
so just tying it back to like what you actually asked.
Yeah,
is like, that's what I think is super, super amazing about the opportunity that this economic system has provided me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said it beautifully. This system, as it has evolved, as you know, businesses, it breeds competition, right? It breeds rivalry, it breeds innovation, right? And so through this, and the bottom line being profits, the human race has been able to progress immensely, right? I mean, like you said, you used the perfect example. 50 years ago, pulling the phone out of your pocket and you can make thousands on thousands of dollars just on your phone alone, right? In addition to recording content, putting it online, and not having to face all these types of gatekeepers, it's incredible, like how much freedom it has additionally allowed us to have an ability within our life, right? And it's obviously reliant on if we have the ability, if we have the resources to explore the benefits of capitalism. And another interesting thing you brought up was the negative side to capitalism, right? In a sense of marketing and in a sense of consumption. And so sometimes, as I said before, the bottom line of capitalism is profit, right? At least in a business sense. And so businesses will go to almost any. Obviously, they'll stay within the boundaries of laws, to some extent. Right? You can express on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, look at the pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exhibit A. Like,
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And it's why don't they care?
Like you said,
Yeah.
money's the bottom line.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
Granted, there are companies and businesses and CEOs out there that their bottom line is the well-being of humanity, and through them bringing value to other people with their mission being, let's make the world a better place and not do anything that's unethical, they make a lot of money from that, and then everybody wins because their product or their service or whatever it is they're bringing value to other people brings value to them, and then they get paid for that value, and everybody's happy. Yeah. Like, that's the positive side of how capitalism can be great. Yeah. Right? But a lot of times it's a mixture of both, right? Like a pharmaceutical company will come out with
a vaccine or something.
Or a vaccine or a drug or whatever. But then, and so it helps save lives, it helps people get better, but then, they can come out with a drug that they could sell for pennies. Yeah. But decide not to. So then people are dying because they're not getting administered drugs because they can't afford the drugs.
They don't have the ability to.
They don't have the ability to access. Like, this is just one example of infinite examples.
Yeah, definitely.
But
that is one of the disadvantages of capitalism. It's a major disadvantage.
Well, see, I think that's one of the disadvantages of improperly unregulated capitalism.
Okay.
Because in my eyes, hypothetically, in a perfect world, you would have properly regulated capitalism, which means that whoever's in charge wants what's best for other people at heart. But then when you look at the people in charge, like, I'm getting into a very
keep going
of things that I don't understand. But when you get to the people in charge, a lot of those people don't also give a crap about the well-being of humanity. Yeah. So then it's like the same people who are like again, like with pharmaceutical companies, the same people who are doing things that are super, super unethical are in bed with the same people that are passing the laws of saying, no, it's okay. So it's like,
and it's once again, I mean, I didn't directly touch on this in my my management class, but like the corporate world, the government, no swearing on this podcast. The government, the media, and big corporations all have. There's like, you might could see this as a conspiracy theory, and we could talk about this a little bit more. But there are ties and there are connections between each, right? And so, whether this be on the issues of taxes, like, so you look at like the meat industry. So, for instance, take the meat industry, right? meat would be extremely high costing if the government didn't subsidize the meat industry, right? So they subsidize it through taxes, right? So they take wage labor, right? They take the amount of money people earn in terms of wages. Wait, do they tax wages? Yeah, they do. They do. They do. Okay, yeah. I should probably know that. Yeah, they do. They do. All right, so yeah, they tax wages, and right, that's that. The government is an extension of the people, right? And the people are the democracy, right? And the government is supposed to be a tool of the people, right, to further the public interest, right? And so using the meat industry as an example, right, you run into things such as ethical issues, and you pointed that out perfectly, right? Because whether dependent on the demand of the system, right, dependent on the demand of people, they like if people aren't demanding something, that's not going to generate value within the capitalistic system, right? And then therefore, businesses are going to they're going to have to adapt accordingly because they survive on profits, right? And interestingly, as you pointed out, businesses' priority is profits, right? And so their bottom line is profits. And with that, I think it runs into kind of like an issue because sometimes profit will take precedent over ethical matters, right? Like there's something that you should ethically do correctly, and there's something that you should that will satisfy that bottom line, right? That profit that will allow you to keep going, right? And so we've also touched on this on the podcast before. Like at what point do you draw that line, right? Like at what point do you draw the line of having too much profit, right? Having like what is too much money? Too much money?
There's not. That's not. To me, that's not the right question.
Okay.
I think that there's no cap on how much money you can make.
Okay.
So long as you're playing within the lines.
Yeah.
But who's drawing the lines?
Yeah.
Where are the lines?
Yeah.
Is it okay to be feeding these animals, for example, like the meat industry? Is it okay the way they're killed? Is it okay the way that they're feeding them pesticides and treating the animals like and keeping them in super small cages and having them live terrible lives and then killing them brutally, and then those pesticides are then going into us and then people are developing cancer? Is it okay to develop foods like that are absolutely ruining society? Like, where is the line drawn?
Yeah.
Right? But if the lines are drawn by people who actually want the best for humanity and aren't in bed with the same CEOs who are making these companies profit, then you get to a point where it doesn't matter how much money you make, and not for nothing, you want those people who are the smartest and hardest working and ethical to be making all the money. Mm-hmm. Because those are going to be the same people who provide jobs for the other people and who create more businesses and who are involved with everything else so that their hands are in a bunch of different baskets.
Mm-hmm. But how realistic is that?
Extremely realistic. You want the people on top to be the same people who are the smartest, hardest working, and are ethical, a.k.a. are playing within the lines, which means what they're doing isn't, what their priorities are isn't to make a profit.
Okay.
Their priority is to add value.
Yeah, but
value within ethics.
Okay.
Right? So
gotcha.
the best for people.
Uh-huh.
Not putting pesticides in foods.
So you think because the bottom priority of capitalism, like I said before, is profit, right? Like that comes not before everything, but nearly all things, right? So do you think systematic change is necessary, right? Do you think capitalism, to some extent, should be altered? Do you think?
Well, I think to me, it's like, what alternative?
So there's interestingly, okay, let me throw this example at you, right? Obviously, it's not a black and white matter. It's like, oh yeah, dude, let's just go explore communism. You're like, no, obviously it's not that simple. But take for example, we did like a TEDx discussion board in the beginning of this class, and I remember it was like the 5 big issues we're facing. I forget, one of them's like global warming, poverty, right? And businesses have to, have to adapt to the environment in order to maintain their profits, in order to maintain their share within the marketplace. And so one of the issues that I forget who the guy was and what exactly he was responding to. I believe it was poverty, but essentially he came out with the idea of like a global, just like pretty much a wage that you're guaranteed, right? Based on just being human, right? So no matter what, you will be able to meet your basic needs, no matter what. Currently,
What are those basic needs?
so basic needs like food, shelter, water, all these types of things, right? And so essentially through taxes, or I think you might have said like billionaires, right, being taxed a little bit, they can have this fund of money that they can always have regardless, right? And so through them having that fund to meet their basic needs and having the ability to have shelter, have water, all their basic needs to get up in the morning, go to work, they will actually become more skilled. The capitalistic society or whatever society they're in will be able to develop more talent to enhance the workplace through productivity, being an autonomous worker that can develop skills, abilities, and experience, and just like you said, produce more value for their company.
Right. I mean, it makes sense on paper, but at the same time, it's like, what's guaranteeing that those people are going to work hard?
Yeah.
What's guaranteeing that those people have the IQ to actually add any value?
That's a good point.
Right. So that's what I'm saying.
It's like, a lot of what ifs for sure.
It's like in a perfect world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But there are problems currently, right?
Agreed.
So do you think change is necessary?
Change is always necessary. But I don't think the right changes, to me, I don't think the right change is capitalism to something else. Unless that something else is something that we haven't heard of and is new.
Yeah.
Because we've tried everything else.
Yeah.
Like, we don't, like, I beg to differ, but like, I haven't, in terms of history, looking at societies that have tried socialism or communism or anything besides capitalism, how good has their societies turned out? Like, this is the best we got.
Is it though?
It has its well. That's what I'm saying. What's better?
So I think there are alternatives, right? Like I said, so there are current alternatives. And another point the guy made, he said, there's enough money in the world, and there's enough. So as I said in the beginning of this episode, right? Capitalism allows businesses to. Oh wait, so let me see. Yeah, so a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than the state, right? And so through this, like we mentioned before, people are able to just gather money, and they're able to hold it, right? And we're not discussing like right here, right now, whether that's right, whether that's wrong, right? That's just a fact. They can gather that money, they can use it as accumulated wealth, as capital, right? That they can reinvest and gain more profit, right? Yeah. So, but that profit. Or no, I should say that property, that wealth can be used towards things such as creating an intrinsic, just for being human, you get that your basic needs met, for example, right? So that is one option that can be explored, right? So whether that be taxing the rich, right, because they have that money, but the money can be used in such a way to help a lot more people, right? And so it's about taking. It's like, so that, for instance, is exploring a new idea, right? And exploring that. So do you think like exploring a new idea like that, would you be open to something like that?
To like what? To like,
yeah, like just like, I don't know. It doesn't have to be that exact example, but like stuff like that. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, listen, I'm the wrong guy.
No, I just want,
no, I
know,
hear
your opinion.
I'm just saying that as a prerequisite to like take what I'm saying with a grain of salt.
Gotcha. Same here.
This is not something that I spend all my time.
Yeah, of course.
But to me, yes, to an extent, because like you gotta have to me, like I at least where I'm at now in my mindset on this is like you gotta have something that inspires people to want to work hard.
Absolutely.
Because if everybody's just given everything, then nothing has any value.
Yeah.
And when nothing has any value, you have a society full of people that have no reason to work hard or do anything.
Gotcha.
And that's when you get the Soviet Union, when millions and millions of people are killed and starved to death. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, So, yes,
Yeah.
I do think that people should be afforded a certain level of basic needs because you're a human being, and in my eyes, and in, I would say, most ethical people's eyes, I mean, then again, ethical is subjective, but besides the point, is like, you deserve a certain amount of things so that you have food, shelter, and clothes on your back. Right? But where is that line drawn? And what are those people doing with what they're given? Are they doing drugs? Are they doing illegal things? Are they actually providing any value to society? It's like there's so many things that go into it where it's like it's not always a black and white answer. You know?
No. Oh yeah. Of course, man. I think you did a good job explaining that. Truly. It isn't just like a black and white example. You know,
it's complicated
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah, it's so complicated. And like with my limited undergraduate business experience.
Me too.
So, but I think I think like you said, just being able to allow everyone to have those basic needs, and have an equal opportunity, whatever that equal opportunity is. Equality will never be reached completely, right?
100%.
But having like that base level, right? Like let's just say like that your basic needs met, right? I think agreed. Having those basic needs met, and then also like you pointed out, like what are they doing with like, okay, let's just say we live in a meritocracy, right? Like we've developed a new system that, for instance, like they've taxed billionaires, or I don't know, they figured out a way to get everyone their basic needs. Like what are they doing now that they have the ability, they have the opportunities to, I guess, maybe get an education or explore areas where they can gain experience and climb the social ladder? And I think that's a very good point as well.
Yeah, because it's like, like you were touching on, is like, I think the overarching theme is like, everybody should have equal opportunity, but I'm totally against equal outcome. Totally against it.
Why?
Because I don't think that you should just be given things just because you want them, right? After you have the equal opportunity, meaning you have clothes on your back, you have food in your stomach, you have a house to live in, right? Or to a certain extent, whatever that is, right? And whether or not you're black, white, pink, purple, man, woman, whatever gender you are, like everybody has as equal of an opportunity to pursue the things they want to pursue, and there's no discrimination in any way, shape, or form. That's a hypothetical. It's never going to happen. But we should pursue equal opportunity. But once we're there, it doesn't mean that everybody gets everything else. Because when you do that, you look at history. Like when everybody's given things, nobody has a willingness to work hard for anything or to make a better society, provide value, right? If you create a society where everybody has equal outcome, nobody has a drive to want to do anything else. Because if I work 10 times harder than you and I'm 10 times smarter than you and would be the next person to build Tesla, SpaceX, or Amazon, which provides the most value to people, I'm not going to. Why would I? If we're, at the end of the day, going to get $10 in our pocket and a loaf of bread, and you're going to get $10 in your pocket and a loaf of bread for half-assing or a third, but for not trying at all and not doing the absolute bare minimum and just scraping by, and I'm working as hard as I possibly can, but we get the same thing, why would I work harder? Do you know what I'm saying?
No, 100%.
So that's why, but then again, super uneducated on this.
We're just having a discussion.
But the philosophy behind equal opportunity, I think, if you disagree with that, it's like I don't even want to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
It shouldn't matter if you're a man or a woman or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or anything that you might be discriminated against. Like I don't think that's right at all. But I think once your basic needs are met, it's up to you.
Gotcha.
Because, and then again, it's like things like IQ, things like how disciplined you are, things like that matter. They matter. And they should matter. Because that's how you get a functioning society, right? And whether or not you want to call it capitalism or what, it's like, it doesn't really matter. But it's like you want the smartest and hardest working people at the top. You do. You really do. You want a phone that works. You want a toilet that flushes. You want a house that doesn't leak. Like, and that's because you have the most competent and hardest working people at the top.
Yep.
You don't hire the crappy plumber. You don't, and there's a reason. You buy the iPhone instead of a Motorola or whatever, for a reason.
Yeah.
Because Steve Jobs got to the top.
Yeah.
Because he was smart, because he worked hard, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he got there. Maybe it helped him that he was a white man. Maybe it helped him because of this. Yes, I'm not denying any of that, right? But it's like, if he wasn't smart and he didn't work hard, it's undeniable he wouldn't be where he was.
Yeah.
He wouldn't.
Yeah.
But that's what provides the value that we all want.
Yeah.
But value isn't created unless there's something to pursue. And when there's equal outcome, there's nothing to pursue anymore.
As you know, as I said before, the government is an extension of the people, right? They don't have money without us, right? And they regulate the system where we operate in, right? They regulate capitalism, and through legislation and the like. So, as I said before, it is the government's duty, right? We trade over rights, right? We become obedient. Don't take that as in a negative way. In order to have things such as property, in order to things like protection, in order to have things just as rights in general, right? So, do you think the government? So, do you think it is the government's job to fix issues, like to fix like social inequalities? So do you think we'll tie this in with businesses as well, right? So certain businesses have the ability to lobby, right, through legislation, and right, they influence policies, right? As you said, there's relationships there, right? But sometimes that gets in the way of the public's interest, right? And so with that, do you think, for example, take like equal salary between women and males, right? Do you think, let's just say a lot, I don't know, maybe like a firm, maybe there's gonna be like a law passed that helps men get, no, I'm sorry, helps women develop a more of an equal salary to men. But that bill that they're going to pass is going to impact the business's profits, right? But that business is obviously going to lobby against that bill because it lowers their profits. So do you think the government should prioritize those social issues over let's just say they're getting heavily lobbied, right? And they're getting heavily influenced through donations, that politician, that senator, whatever. Do you think it's the government's job, like as an entity, to address social issues within the public interest, such as like gender, race, and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because like I just think that the priorities need to be ethically in the right spot, right? The government needs to do what it needs to do so that we can increase the amount of money that we have in the system and in our economy so that we have a good economy. But then you need to tie it back to, does everybody have equal opportunity?
Yep.
Right? The man and the woman issues, I don't even want to get into that.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
cancel.
tough. It's tough. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Whatever.
I gotcha.
But I think that the government should step into place where it should step into place. But that all has to do with ethics. Is it the right thing to do?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it really just depends. It's like the government needs to do what it needs to do to have the most money in the system, but at the same time to make sure everybody has an equal opportunity and everybody's being treated as fairly as they can possibly monitor to the best of their ability.
Yeah. And I think to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, I think sometimes the government does catch the bad end of the stick, right? And it's because it's a hard thing to balance, right? It's incredibly complex. It's nothing simple, right? And a lot of times, whether this be on the media, whether this be different YouTubers, content creators, just people in general having discussions, they often simplify it, right? And it is highly complicated, right? And so one of the big things that I touch on within this ethics management class is capital T truths, like absolutes, right? And smaller T truths that are more subjective and open to change, right? And so when it comes to a business sense, how important do you think it is to be able to, within your own experience, I guess saying like working, or maybe not working, but like what you have observed from businesses, how important is it for businesses, or maybe just you in general, to be aware, be open to change, be open to not have, be open to having small truths, or do you think there are capital T truths in a business sense that?
So, can you give an example?
So a capital T truth would be, we live in a meritocracy, right? Capital T truth, absolutely.
Yeah.
But let's just say that's like that. That's like your complete, like closed-minded, absolutely hard hit belief, right?
Yeah.
That capital T truth. We in the United States live in a meritocracy.
Yeah. But your truths are subjective to who you are and what you believe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. But with that being a small T truth, there are other truths. For example, we don't live in a meritocracy. I'm not saying I'm taking either side. I'm just saying, do we, like, you lose that example, like, okay, we live in a meritocracy, absolute T truth, or we don't live in a meritocracy. Maybe there are other things, such as, people don't have the equal opportunity, like you said, to explore areas of interest that they want, right? To have the ability to climb the social ladder, right? And so having that, like, what is your opinion on capital T truths and lower T truths?
Well, I'm still confused.
Yeah,
on what
no,
lower,
you're good. You're
lower
good.
T truth is.
Oh, so lower T truth is just having more. It's like an open mindedness, right? Like you're not holding that absolutely. It's like a belief, right? So it's a belief. So think about like knowing versus believing.
I understand.
Right? Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I should have broke that down. I
No, you're good.
apologize.
No, I understand.
Yeah. So like in a business sense, do you think it's very important to stay kind of reactive, or rather be proactive? And reactive, I guess you could relate that to having capital T truths, right? And being proactive to lower T truths.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a difference between acting things out and being open to change as well.
Yeah.
Because I think you should act things out to the best of your ability to what you believe is ethical, and you should do that.
Mm-hmm.
But you should also be open to, oh, this is probably not the right thing I should have been doing.
Yeah.
Even though at the time I thought it was the right thing to be doing because of X, Y, and Z or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's how change is made,
Yeah.
And in order for us to develop as a society and for businesses to develop, like you need to be able to be open to change, right? And that's the reason why a bunch of businesses die, is because they're not open to change. Like, look at the TV industry. Look at a good example is the trucking industry.
Yeah.
If your capital T truth is, I'm the best truck driver out there, I'm never going to get replaced, wait 10 years till UPS has self-driving cars. Let's see how good your capital T truth is holding up. You're not going to have a job.
True.
You won't.
Yeah.
You just won't. So like that's just one example of, like, I just think that everybody should be open to change, but hold your truths to you that you believe are ethical, because you have to have rules that you can play by so that you know how to play the game.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, you have to be able to be open to developing yourself and growing in certain aspects.
Yeah. And one last note that I'll touch on is you made a good point there where I don't know if you made this point directly, but in a capitalist society, like I said before, we have the ability to explore areas of interest, right? Those areas of interest are in more demand if they generate more money, right? So take, for instance, for me, I'm a philosophy major, right? Over the past 200 years, 200 years ago, philosophy was in, right? Being a philosopher, that was it, right? But now you look at philosophy, there's a statistic that they can enter the industry just as much as, I guess you could say, other students, and they have the ability to get a job. Yeah, which may be true. But from my own experience, I find it's been very hard for me to find an internship, for example. And that's on me for not exploring as much. Capitalist society, where that you do have the ability to explore your areas of interest, but those areas of interest, you're not always going to be able to do what you want to do, right? Because let's just say I want to be a gardener, for example, right? I want to be agriculture is a huge thing. Don't get me wrong, but if you want to be a personal gardener, where you plant flowers, or maybe a paparazzi PR individual, which there are very limited positions that there are more limited positions, right? And they're harder to get into. So do you think for someone that is, you could even say this in your own experience, yeah, this is a good example. Even though you are in a more dominant industry, right? Content creation is on the up, right? And this is not an exact parallel example, but like through capitalism allowing you to develop a career in coaching, there's no doubt about that, right? And being able to do, I mean, yeah, even being a life coach, that too is very. Is it though? Like, okay, yeah. What do you think about life coaching? Do you think that's a very limited position by capitalism? Like, I'm not too aware.
What do you mean by limited?
So, like I was saying before, like philosophy has transitioned from kind of a dominant job to one that is not as dominant. Because
but what is philosophy as a job?
So for instance, just the amount of value that it brings to the market, right? Like how much money does it produce? Like, so you look at like the main career, it's like being a philosophy teacher as compared to an engineer, right? Like what is the demand for each industry? And I know it's kind of gray for philosophy, but
I don't know, but it depends on how good you are at what you think you're good at.
Yeah.
AKA how much value you're bringing and how creative you are with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because like I could be a super good coach, but if I'm not writing books or creating content on TikTok or posting podcasts on YouTube and getting paid for advertisements and views and things of that nature, which is what I'm referring to as the creative part of coaching, then I'm not going to make as much money, right? But if you as a philosophy teacher are not just being a philosophy teacher, you're finding your own creative ways to incorporate your skills and passion and your purpose with other ways of not necessarily monetizing it, but adding value and then getting paid for that value, then it's like, then that's sort of on you, because it's like now we're entering a whole new world of creative work.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's going to require people to enter this creative side of find your passion, figure it out, and combine that with creative work. And it doesn't matter what you do, but if you can figure out a creative way to add value and get paid for that value, and you combine that with something that you're actually good at, you're off to the races.
Heck yeah, man. And hit that music for me, my man. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are wrapping up episode 34 of the Conscious Cast. I am your host, Cal, along with my other co-host, Jay, and my man, Cole, dipped out. Unfortunately, he had to go somewhere. We are just having a nice conversation, okay? We have very limited knowledge in this, so please question what we are saying. Do your own research. Come to your own conclusions. Do not take anything as we are saying as fact. Take it as a lowercase t. And, anything else you want to say, my man?
No, just think for yourself.
Think for yourself.
Think for yourself.
If anything, use this conversation as an example. But I think we had some interesting. I think I took a lot of benefit from this, and I enjoyed it a lot.
100%.
Yeah. So with all that being said, love yourself because I love you, and peace the frig.